Do Crohn's disease symptoms keep coming back? Tremfya guselkumab may help. At 12 weeks, rapid symptom remission was achieved in most patients taking Tremfya, and some experienced visible improvement of their intestinal lining at 12 weeks and 1 year. Individual results may vary. Tremfya is a prescription medicine used to treat adults with moderately to severely active Crohn's disease. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and TB. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Explore what's possible and ask your doctor about Tremfya today. Call 1-800-526-7736 to learn more or visit tremfyaradio.com.
Heather is a nurse practitioner from United Healthcare.
We meet patients wherever they live.
During a house call, she found Jack had an issue.
Jack's blood pressure was dangerously high.
It was 217 over 110.
So they got Jack to the hospital and got him the help he needed.
He had had a stent placed in his heart, preventing a massive heart attack.
If it wasn't for my guardian angel, I wouldn't be here.
Hear more stories like Jack's at unitedhealthcare.com. Benefits, features, and/or devices vary by plan, area, limitation, and exclusions apply.
The only thing hotter than the temperatures outside, that's right, your Philadelphia Phillies. Welcome to Phillies Therapy. My name is Paul Boyer. It's scorching hot here in the Northeast United States. Hope you're staying cool out there. If you're listening to this in the future in December, I hope it's conjuring up nice memories of warmth. It's a little bit too warm for my taste, but what's not too warm for my taste is the play on the field by the baseball team. How's this for an intro? The Phillies, since bottoming out against the Pirates, getting swept, played some really good baseball. They've gone 10-3 in their last 13 games. And they took the series at home over the weekend from the New York Mets. 3 games, 3 national networks, 3 blowouts. 2 of them, thankfully, in the Phillies' favor. They currently sit in first place in the NL East thanks to that series win. They are 1 game up. They are only a half game back of the Dodgers for the best record in the National League again. Been on a bit of a back and forth this month, the last few weeks. But the Phillies are playing excellent baseball. They're getting good pitching. They're getting good hitting, basically up and down the lineup. Everything has been clicking the last 2 weeks. And it all came together this weekend, thankfully, where the Phillies won their 4th straight series at home against the Mets. They've won each of their home series against the Mets in the last 2 seasons. With 7 games left to play against their division rival, they need to take both series in order to hold the season series tiebreak, but that's a problem for later. They don't see one another again until August. And now we enter the stretch, the last couple of weeks before the All-Star break. The Phillies are off today, Monday, June the 23rd, before heading on down to Houston. Funny that they retreat from these triple-digit temperatures in the Northeast to go to Houston, Texas, but thankfully they have a dome. Daikin Park, which, honestly, I'm going to do this right now as I wrap up this intro. I've never actually looked up what Daikin is. What is
air
Daikin?
Conditioning?
Oh, how's that for irony? It's the former Minute Maid, former Enron, former whatever, is going to host the Phillies against the Astros in a 2022 World Series rematch for 3 games starting tomorrow. So all of that sets the table and puts me in a good mood. You can tell probably by the smile on my face and the tone of my voice that I'm feeling pretty good about the baseball team lately. To introduce,
see you smiling
in this audio only format, to introduce and welcome in, as always, my co-host. He is the Athletics Phillies beat writer. He is going to Houston for 3 games. He is Matt Gell. Matt, hello. Happy Monday. How are you?
I'm concerned about anyone who will be listening to this podcast in December. Like you suggested, that would be very weird to do that. I am well. Saw some interesting baseball this past week. I wouldn't say it was good baseball. I mean, it was like you said, it was 3 blowouts, and the games were, at least the first 2 games were rather tedious. I thought wasn't the best watch, but Phillies are playing well, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago. I mean, the schedule is going to be, is going to really test them here. And, naturally, they've really elevated their play since facing some good teams. I mean, that stretch you're talking about, Paul, the last 2 weeks, That's a series win against the Cubs. It's a series sweep of the Blue Jays. It's a series win against the Mets. The Marlins were in there too, but they're not very good. So that's three teams, three really good teams, or at least decent teams, we think, that the Phillies have taken care of business against. And now you get Astros, Braves, Padres, the Reds, who are kind of sneaky good right now, I guess. And then the West Coast swing, the Giants and the Padres again before the break. So, big tasks await the Phillies here, but, there's a lot of things that are going well for them right now.
Yeah, when we were back in May and even at the beginning of this month, I was always looking ahead to this stretch of games, right? Like the teams you just mentioned are good teams and teams you want the Phillies to play better against. The Mets, obviously, but there are other National League competitors in there. We mentioned the last time, we all spoke, we had an episode that the Phillies taking the season series from the Cubs along the way was really nice. And that was a nice bounce back from the series sweep in Pittsburgh. They're not out of it yet. Like you mentioned, this is a pretty tough 6-game road trip. I think the Braves are stinky, but they have a few good players still, right? Like Chris Sale just landed on the injured list with a rib fracture, which in typical Braves fashion
is probably going to be like an all-star, right?
He's wild. He's doing.
I mean, despite missing the first.
Right. Remember the Yasiel Puig debate from years ago when he first debuted, with just like a month and a half to go before the All-Star break, and everybody's like, oh yeah, this guy's got to be an All-Star. He's hitting like 380 or something for the Dodgers. It's kind of what it's reminding me of with this. He's doing everything in his absolute power to be superhuman on his 2 surgically repaired knees. He's already third on the team in Baseball Reference wins above replacement, just coming back and just hitting the cover off the ball. And the Braves have responded by, I think they have a losing record in the game since he's been back. He's been back for 27 games, and Atlanta has responded by going, let me see what the record is here. 11-16 in his 27 appearances. Like it's amazing what's happening down there. It's got to be frustrating for a guy to come back with his 1202 OPS and have the team be 5 games underwater. It's just, he hasn't been the shot in the arm that team needs. They're 6 games under 500, 11 games back of the Phillies as we enter play here on Monday.
That's crazy. 11 games. I mean,
yeah.
Because going into the season, we thought, if you're looking at the hierarchy of the National League, right? The Dodgers standalone, we thought, on paper, right? And everything changes when the games are actually played. But I think there was a strong argument that going into the season, most projections and most people, and whether you're in the sport or outside the sport, would have pegged the Braves as the second or third best team in the National League.
Yeah.
And it has certainly not played out that way.
No, it has not. I was talking myself back into the Braves come the end of spring training. Just looking at the roster, right? Like it's pretty similar to what I lean back on every time the Phillies hit a bit of a skid when they were, when they slumped, as mentioned, hit their latest low point against the Pirates. There's just a lot of talent on that team, and it seems weird to have everybody struggle at once. Now, the Phillies obviously have rebounded in big ways, or have had shorter struggles than the Braves have had. They're 16 games over 500, and like proofs in the pudding there, almost halfway through the season, and they're on a mid-90s win pace again. But the Braves sitting at 6 games under 500 with the talent they have on that roster, it's just been a season full of underperformance with some of these guys, and that's allowed this distance to be built up. The Phillies and Mets running away and making this a 2-horse race in the division right now. And I don't think that's going to change.
Yeah. Okay. So here, let's start with this then. Do you, right now, as we sit here on June 23rd, are the Phillies the second best team in the National League? Let's put the Dodgers in their own class. And I know the Dodgers have had their own issues, certainly, no doubt, but I think talent wise, I think everyone would, it'd be a real hot take to say, well, the Dodgers aren't the most talented or the best team in the National League. So let's set that aside. Do you think the Phillies right now, can you objectively say that this is the second best team in the National League?
I think the argument for them is strong. I love the rotation when it's healthy, and I think that could put them ahead of the Cubs, who have a better offense than the Phillies. I'm still not sure what to make of the Mets because I go back and forth on their pitching. The pitching is what's carried them mostly to this record that they have right now, right? 46 and 32. But I look at some of these performances and I'm just like, something still isn't quite adding up for me about the Mets pitching. So, and that's really kind of hard to put into words. Like, I'm a big strikeout to walk ratio guy. Obviously in baseball, no one single statistic tells you anything, but I like to look at that as a sanity check for me when I look at pitchers. And I look up and down this Mets, pitching staff, and as a team, it's 2.4 strikeouts to walk as we enter play here on Monday, which is pretty good. But you look at the Phillies and it's over 3. It's 3.1 staff-wide. And that is a rotation and a bullpen even. Lately, there have been a couple arms that have really surged that you look at and you say, okay, that kind of backs that up. To me, I look at that number and I see, all right, Zach Wheeler's got an ERA in the mid-2s. He's also striking out over 5 times as many guys as he's walking. Luzardo, Sanchez, over 3. Ranger, almost at 4. Even when Nola was hurt, he was over 3. And McAble got, he got hit around a little bit against the Mets. He's still got a 4.5. He's got 18 strikeouts to 4 walks. And I think that's an important check for me, because then I look at the Mets and it's just like, they're not overpowering guys, right? In simple terms. And they're walking a lot of guys. And typically those are not things that really stand up to me.
No, I mean, their walk rate right now as a staff, the Mets, there's only 2 teams that are worse, and that's the Angels and the White Sox. And that's not typically the company you want to keep, but
no.
Yeah, I agree with you. And obviously the Mets have fortifications coming, right? Sean Manaea is nearing a return. Frankie Montas, whatever you make of him, they gave him a decent amount of money. He's going to pitch for them this week. So there's a lot of shuffling, but Kodai Senga is out for a while, and they do have some, pretty decent pitching prospects in the minors that may or may not play a role later this season, much like Andrew Painter for the Phillies. So, I think I agree with you. I mean, something doesn't, I wouldn't say it feels off, but it feels a little different about the Mets, and maybe it's this, they're not a buzzsaw like they were at the end of the year when the Phillies saw them in September last year at Citi Field. Remember that? That almost set the stage, I think, because the Phillies came away from that series being like, okay, this team is like, they're good. We think we're better, but this team is good. And they've got this kind of like, they've got this energy. They've got this momentum. Right now, Paul, the Phillies, or the Mets, I'm sorry, the 2025 Mets, do you know what they remind me a lot of right now?
Who do they remind you of?
The 2024 Phillies.
Ooh. Okay.
I mean, in a lot of ways,
really hot start coming back to earth.
Yeah, like the pitching, like being, out of this world, coming off of, they get to the NLCS the year before, and they have this, this, and obviously the Mets in the 2024 Mets, were a surprise contender and went way farther than anyone thought they would. The 2023 Phillies, fell on their face and they were expected to win. But in terms of regular seasons, the 2025 Phillies, the 2025 Mets remind me a lot of the 2024 Phillies, just the way it has started.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I see it.
And we'll see. I mean, it's fascinating to me, like with the way the schedules work now, the Phillies and Mets will not see each other again for 2 months. August 25th at Citi Field, a 3-game series is the next time they see them. And obviously these teams are going to look different. By the next time they meet, there's going to be trades, there's going to be injuries, there's going to be surprises. I do think I still think that I think there's going to be a divisional race. Like, and the Phillies, I was thinking about it last night as I was writing after Sunday Night Baseball. The Phillies, there's been a lot of stuff that's happened to the Phillies, in the last 13 years, and specifically in the last 3 years with all the postseason run and a World Series and all these things that have happened. They won a division, but there hasn't been a good division race, right? We haven't seen the Phillies have a good divisional race, and really it's been for a long, long time. I mean, the last true divisional race they had was 2009, a September pennant race. And I still think that these two teams are close enough. I think the Phillies are a little better, but I think that they are close enough that it will be a divisional race in September and probably into late September. Do you see it playing out any other way?
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Because Progressive offers discounts for paying in full, owning a home, and more. Plus, you can count on their great customer service to help you when you need it, so your dollar goes a long way. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save on car insurance. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
Heather is a nurse practitioner from United Healthcare.
We meet patients wherever they live.
During a house call, she found Jack had an issue.
Jack's blood pressure was dangerously high.
It was 217 over 110.
So they got Jack to the hospital and got him the help he needed.
He had had a stent placed in his heart, preventing a massive heart attack.
If it wasn't for my guardian angel, I wouldn't be here.
Hear more stories like Jack's at UnitedHealthcare.com. Benefits, features, and/or devices vary by plan, area limitation, and exclusions apply.
When's the last time you changed your air filter? Filtrete brand is here to remind you that it's important to change it regularly to help keep your HVAC system running smoothly and efficiently. Multiple factors can impact the life of your AC air filter, like pets, cooking, and poor outdoor air quality. Filtrete MPR 1900 air filters can help capture these unwanted microparticles, including bacteria and viruses circulating in your home's air. Change your filter today with Filtrete brand.
Did you know 39% of teen drivers admit to texting while driving? Even scarier, those who text are more likely to speed and run red lights. Shockingly, 94% know it's dangerous but do it anyway. As a parent, you can't always be in the car, but you can stay connected to their safety with Greenlight Infinity's driving reports. Monitor their driving habits, see if they're using their phone, speeding, and more. These reports provide real data for meaningful conversations about safety. Plus, with weekly updates, you can track their progress over time. Help keep your teens safe. Sign up for Greenlight Infinity at greenlight.com/podcast.
No, that checks to me. You know, these are two good but flawed teams. You know, the Phillies, we've been over, you know, what they can and cannot do well. They don't play as good a defense as they should. Their outfield is still a bit of a question mark. You know, things that it's well-trod ground at this point.
The bullpen.
The bullpen doesn't have a ton of depth. With the Mets, you have some interesting things happening with the Mets. Juan Soto is coming to life, as you kind of expect somebody like him, you know, to eventually do. He's hit a lot better.
My
lately.
God, that pitch he hit, that 3-2 fastball, elevated fastball he hit off of McAble. I mean, that's the night. Like, that was a bad pitch. Like, even though it was above the zone. Like, that is not where you're supposed to pitch Soto. And I don't think that, like, my understanding was, and if you watch JT set the target, like, I think they were trying to go low in the zone there, and Abel just missed the spot. But that swing was insane.
Yeah. He's talented. He wasn't going to have like a 780 OPS or whatever it was forever. That's just not realistic to expect that. Francisco Lindor is still playing like an all-world talent. Pete Alonso came back to earth, but he's still hitting well. Like, they have offensive talent, but lower in the order.
Oh, their bottom of their lineup is oh my God. And like the best way that played out was, like, you watch Abel's outing. It was only 3 innings, but the 4 through 9 hitters in the Mets lineup were 1 for 9 with a single against Abel.
Yeah.
And yet still he only had 3 innings because those top 3 guys in the lineup,
back to back home
Nimmo,
runs, sure.
and Soto just crushed him. And the bottom of that time, they just sent Francisco Alvarez out to the minors. Like, you know, a lot of interesting things there. But I'm sure the Mets look at the Phillies and see the same thing as, like, the bottom line.
Yes.
Look at the freaking lineup the Phillies put out on Sunday night. I mean, it's like, you know, what a Frankenstein thing. And yeah, I mean, they won.
If you could hold a bat in the right-handed batter's box, you were going to face David Peterson, is basically what that amounted to.
But I mean, there are a lot of similarities to these teams, I think, and Paul, you've more eloquently laid that out than I have. But
thank you.
It just feels like they are, and I'm rooting for this. Like, I would love to see a great divisional race in September with drama, and, you know, the Mets come to Philadelphia in early September for a 4-game series, and, like, it would be awesome if those games, if they're neck and neck, and those games really mean something. Because
yes, it would.
Just that energy, that division race energy.
Yes, it would.
It is a different energy than the postseason, but that division race energy is so cool, and, like, we haven't seen that in 15 years, honestly. Because those years where the Phillies won the division in 10 and 11, and even last year, like, it was, you know, pretty much in hand. Definitely in 11, pretty much in 10, and then last year, you know, relatively in hand, you know, by the last 2 weeks of the season.
Yep. You know, it goes back to part of my gripe from earlier in the season, is that the Phillies wrap up their division schedule. I mean, I'm not counting the Marlins in the second to last series of the year, but they wrap up their division
Their
schedule.
schedule is so weird.
It is so weird. That Mets series that you just mentioned, ending on September 11th, Thursday, September 11th, is their last NL East series. Again, not counting the Marlins, because they're not going to be a factor in this race. They have two series against weekends,
the AL Central weekends.
The West Coast road trip near the end of the year, which always makes me nervous. It's a weird end to the year. And so those Mets games are going to be really important. They'll still have business to take care of. But I agree with you. I think it was nice last year. It really was, to see this team kind of have a mostly stress-free run to a division title. There was part of me that was like, yeah, this is relaxing. This is cool. I can go into watching some of these, later summer games and not feel like I have to, sweat out losing ground and threatening the Phillies playoff position, because that was really never in jeopardy. But as we saw, however much you want to weigh this, maybe a lack of playing those games, those competitive games, those tight games late in the season, and for so long, really, maybe that had something of an effect. Weigh that as you like. Your mileage may vary. But this year looks different. And I would have a hard time seeing it go some way other than, I think, like another max of 5 games separating them at any point, barring something crazy.
Oh, that's
we saw how fast
over under. What will be the most games that the Mets and the Phillies are separated by until they see each other again August 25th?
I think it's going to stay close. It really does feel
like
the
largest lead for either team.
I would have a hard time seeing it go beyond 5 again. I know the Phillies just recently quickly erased that 5-game deficit that they had to go back up a game. The last 2 weeks have been kind of wild for that. I would really have a hard time seeing it go beyond 5 in either direction. Something would have to go really wrong on one side or another, I think, for the gap to get that big again.
And just to be emblematic, just to compare, like right now through 78 games last year, the Phillies had an 8-game lead in the National League East.
Yeah. And that's only a little bit shorter than how much they currently have over the Braves right now, who have been bad.
Correct.
Right? Like it's a different landscape. The team is good. We know that. The Mets are playing better than I certainly was expecting them to play. And even if I think their pitching is going to come back down to earth a little bit more, they still have a lot of talent on that roster. They're going to hang in there. And the Phillies don't have, right now anyway, I don't know what July is going to bring. I don't think it's going to bring a whole lot of help. My expectations are kind of low for this July, relatively speaking. But whatever they do, it'll just be a fortification. I don't think it's going to put them, leaps and bounds ahead of the Mets, nor do I think the Mets have a move that they can make.
I was going to say, do you think the Mets? Yeah, I mean, talking to Will Salmon, who covers the Mets for The Athletic, he's a terrific writer, and you should read him and follow him. He's got a great feel for what's going on with the Mets and what they're thinking and all of it. But he thinks that they'll look for an infielder, either second or third base.
That would make sense.
And the rotation is something that David Stearns has a very particular way of building. And we're seeing it play out. I mean, they've gotten these unexpected contributions, but they don't commit to long-term deals. They don't like to overpay. Stearns, at least in his history, for starting pitching, or commit long-term to it. So I do think it'd be interesting what they do from a pitching standpoint. But just like the Phillies, I mean, they have like real center field questions. They have some bullpen questions, probably not as many bullpen questions as the Phillies do, but some. I mean, their bullpen is just okay.
Yeah.
But again, the Phillies inherent advantage in all of this, Paul, and all of it. And I was talking to a Phillies player after the game last night about this. Like, there's going to be ups and downs the rest of the way, but the reason why the Phillies are who they are and why we look at them the way we look at them is because of their starting rotation.
The rotation. Yep.
And
Absolutely.
Jesus Luzardo, a phenomenal outing. That at bat against Soto was tremendous. Like, great to watch. It was so much fun to watch, and they were both having fun. And you just smile, right? Because like, no matter how that at bat goes, whether Soto gets on or not, but like, those are two guys who are like really having fun on the field and competing at such a high level. Those two guys in that moment. But you want to take the last 2 weeks, Paul, and 2 weeks ago we were doing this concernometer because they were playing their worst baseball of the season. They'd just been swept by the Pittsburgh Pirates of all teams. And now in the 2 weeks since, without Bryce Harper, by the way,
they've
really steadied the ship. And every podcast I feel like we do, I keep coming back to this, but the rotation, Paul, in 13 games the last 2 weeks has a 2.26 ERA. It's best in baseball.
That'll work.
Okay? And 75 strikeouts and 75 and 2/3 innings with 16 walks. Like, I don't want to sound like a broken record, and it's boring because you're like, well, you keep talking about the rotation. It's like, yes, because like it is such an advantage for the Phillies.
This is kind of like what late June and early July are, though. Like we've seen what the
Sit
team
back,
is.
put it on cruise control, and let these guys do their thing. And like, yes, there will be bumps, no doubt, and there will be some injuries, and they've overcome so far not having Aaron Nola, who I know was not pitching well at the beginning of the year, but his volume is important, especially in the dog days of summer. So they will miss that, and they do miss that, but they've found ways to just move on. And like Mick Abel has not been perfect by any stretch, right? I mean, like we've seen him against the Cubs and the Mets, and we've seen that, good hitters, good high caliber major league hitters can handle some of Mick Abel's stuff. And Mick Abel has left too many hittable fastballs over the plate. But he's also mostly kept them in games. And like, you're right, he's their fifth starter. Like he is their fifth starter right now. And, remember how bad the fifth starters were last year for the last 2 months of the season, and they're just looking for anyone with a pulse to just keep them in a game, and Mick Abel is doing that, and the bar is supposed to be low for a 23-year-old rookie who's just trying to keep them in games every fifth day. So the rotation is just, and that's the weakest link right now, and the other 4 links are elite. Ranger Suarez, if he's your 4 right now, I mean, like, and it will be a test this week in Houston because the Astros hit lefties really well. Like they don't have a single left-handed hitter, I think, on their roster. So the Phillies did bring range of rotation a little bit. They want to break up the lefties some way. So it's Suarez on Tuesday, Wheeler on Wednesday, Sanchez on Thursday, and then going into Atlanta, it'll be Abel on Friday, Luzardo on Saturday, and Suarez on Sunday. And the reason why they want it, they have 3 lefties in rotation, so there's going to have to be a spot where 2 lefties are going back to back, and they've decided that they want the 2 lefties going back to back to be Luzardo and Suarez because they're very different profiles, even though they both throw with their left hand. Yeah, that makes sense. If you haven't been paying too much attention to the American League or to the Astros in particular, I think again they are, frustratingly. The Thursday matchup of the probables right now are Chris Sanchez and Hunter Brown. Hunter Brown, one of the very best starting pitchers in the American League going right now. It will be a great test for the Phillies to come out and see what they can do. See, it's a bit of a heat check, right? Because this offense up and down the lineup has been hitting great for the last 2 weeks. Alec Bohm, 960 OPS. Brandon Marsh, 940 OPS. Edmundo Sosa had a huge 3-run homer in the Mets series. Nick Castellanos hitting great. Kyle Schwarber doesn't have a high average, but he's drawing a lot of walks, and he's smacking the ball around again. It is June. The Junebarian is here. Turner, who I believe entering Monday is still leading the National League in hits. 94 hits. He's hitting great. The offense is doing its thing right now. Again, without Bryce Harper. Which I feel like we've been talking about Bryce Harper, but I don't, they've been doing this without Bryce, and it's impressive. Yeah.
So that's definitely a game to check out. Framber Valdez, people are familiar with him,
Framber versus Suarez. I mean, that's two great. That's,
the crafty lefty fest.
The two crafty lefties. Yeah, exactly.
Colton Gordon is the probable for Wednesday, who I am not very familiar with. He's made 7. He's 26 years old. He made 7 starts for the Astros this year in his rookie year. He's a lefty.
8th rounder from UCF.
Yeah. So we'll see how he's on a bit of a good run lately. He's only allowed 5 innings, no more than 2 earned runs in each of his last 3 starts. So we'll see how that goes. It should be a fun series, again in a dome. So it'll be temperature controlled.
What do you think about what's when they take the field at I'm still gonna call it Minute Maid Park.
Yeah.
At Minute Maid Park. What is the first thing you'll think about from the 2022 World Series in Houston?
The game 1 comeback, coming back from down 5-0.
You're not going to think of the Alvarez home run.
No, but it'll help that he's not going to be there, right? Like I don't have
True, he's not playing.
He's hurt. Like I won't have to see him No, I'll think of the game one comeback.
You'll think of like the JT homer, like right in the first row in right field. Yeah.
You know, like I remember watching that game and I see Kyle Tucker hit his 2 home runs and, you know, the bat flip happens. I'm like, oh, crap. Is this where the Phillies magic finally runs out? Do they finally run into this wall? And then this comeback is tremendous. And that is what I'll remember. I'll keep good thoughts in my mind. I
have no recollection of game 2. What happened in game 2 of the World Series?
I don't know.
Do you remember? I'm being serious. No. Like I have no recollection of it. It's Noel, right?
Yeah, I mean they lost. That much I remember. But like,
no, game 2 was Wheeler. Noel was game 1. That was a weird game. Wheeler was so compromised that series, and he was not right, you know. And whatever. We're not going to relitigate game 6 of the 22 World Series, but there was a reason why they had taken him out of the game. I mean, and I know he was pitching well, but I mean he was compromised.
Yeah.
Physically.
Yeah. So anyway, that was 2022. Now here we are in the regular season, 2025, playing the Astros in June, not at the end of the year, which is cool. Yeah. So
the last time the Phillies were in Houston, the last game that they played there, it was a Sunday night game and it was started by Bailey Falter.
Who was on a bit of a run we're going all over the place with the tangents right now, but he's on a bit of a run with the Pirates lately, right? He's
whatever.
Yeah, I know. He's been the 5.5 strikeouts per 9. Yeah, clearly dominating.
What the last 2 weeks, Paul, we talked about how well the Phillies have played. Like, what sticks out to you as something that you're not convinced will stick, and what sticks out to you as something that's like, okay, this is a real, you know, this looks like somebody who's catching fire and is going to keep it going.
That's a fun angle. To think about. I think this is a really good question because we're at a point. I'm going to vamp a little bit here. We're at a point where a couple of these guys have, through larger samples now, put together interesting seasons. And most prominently, I think of Tanner Banks, who has been far better than I was expecting him to be. And now we're here halfway through the year. You know, by the end of this Houston series, it will be literally halfway through the Phillies schedule. And Tanner Banks has been great. He's been arguably better than Matt Strahm.
Well, the 5 outs he got Friday night probably won them the game. And I know it ended up being a blowout, but and he's given up a lot of home runs, and like there's been some not so good moments, but Friday night, the first game of the Mets series, was his best moment of the season, I thought. He inherits a runner, he gets 2 outs, and he comes back and faces Lindor and Nimmo and Soto in a tight game and gets him. And it was a tie game at that point, and goes 1-2-3, gets a little help in the field, and then the Phillies score some runs. So I mean, like Banks was big.
This episode brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Shifting a little money here, a little there, and hoping it all works out? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can get a better budgeter and potentially lower your insurance bill too. You tell Progressive what you want to pay for car insurance, and they'll help find you options within your budget. Try it today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Did you know 39% of teen drivers admit to texting while driving? Even scarier, those who text are more likely to speed and run red lights. Shockingly, 94% know it's dangerous, but do it anyway. As a parent, you can't always be in the car, but you can stay connected to their safety with Greenlight Infinity's driving reports. Monitor their driving habits, see if they're using their phone, speeding, and more. These reports provide real data for meaningful conversations about safety. Plus, with weekly updates, you can track their progress over time. Help keep your teens safe. Sign up for Greenlight Infinity at greenlight.com/podcast.
Welcome to It Takes Energy, presented by Energy Transfer, where we talk all things oil and natural gas. Oil and gas drive our economy, ensure our country's security, and open pathways to brighter futures. What do you know about oil and natural gas? You likely associate them with running your car or heating your home. But these two natural resources fuel so much more than that. More than 6,000 consumer products that we rely on every day are made using oil and gas. Before you even step out the door in the morning, you've already used more products made possible because of oil and gas than you realize. From the toothpaste you brush your teeth with, the soap you washed your face with, and the sheets you slept on. Not to mention your makeup, contact lenses, clothes, and shoes. Oil and gas are vital parts of all these products and so many more. Look around, and you'll see the essential role oil and gas plays in our lives. Our world needs oil and gas, and people rely on us to deliver it. To learn more, visit energytransfer.com.
Matt, I don't know if this is a boring answer, but on aggregate, what we've seen and the season lines and the numbers that we see on the page for almost
we're 78
everybody.
games in. We're almost
Yeah.
halfway in. So,
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of this is, I'm not, guys can have good second halves, but, a lot of the stuff that we see right now, there's some signal to it.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm still a little hung up about how JT is going to do down the rest of the season here, because he is still playing so much. All the talk about mitigating some of his games, it hasn't really happened, and he's been hitting a lot better lately. Like he's tended to do.
He's a guy that's actually like stuck out to me of late.
Yeah,
because he's going the other way.
Yeah,
and because
he
he's
is.
not chasing as much.
Yeah,
actually, he sticks out to me. Like, and I think there's been a lot of work at making an adjustment there.
Like what? What's stuck out?
Trying to not swing at everything and trying to just go to right field a little more. And a lot of his hits have been to right field, where you just kind of like that little swing, and it's almost like that little swing, he just drops the head on it and just shoots it to right. And we've seen it a lot. And to me, again, I don't know when we talked about this earlier in the year, where like I thought there was some reticence on his behalf of not being willing to recognize that he is a different hitter at this point in his career, that he is not necessarily a pull side power guy anymore. He might not have the gap power that he used to have, but that doesn't mean that he cannot be a valuable player at the plate.
Mm-hmm.
And I think lately we've seen him adopt a better all fields approach, which might better suit him at this stage in his career.
Yeah, I think that checks out. One guy who is, I mentioned Tanner Banks playing better than I expected him to. One guy who is, really for this whole season now played like I had wanted him to play, and I think a lot of people have wanted him to play, is Trey Turner. He seems to be, the defense has been fine lately too. But
he made a great play Sunday night. That little ball that he barehanded.
He's, the athleticism is still fully on display, absolutely. But I think offensively, we just pick out this 13-game stretch since the Pirates sweep. He's walked more than he's struck out. Trey Turner, he's got 5 walks to 4 strikeouts in his last 59 plate appearances. 845 OPS. This is a guy who is picking this team up while Kyle Schwarber gets hot, right? Because he started out June so slowly, while Bryce Harper is out. He has been very consistent, I would argue. And that's a big word that people like to throw around when you talk about star players, right? I'm just looking at his season numbers and his game logs, right? At the end of the day on April 29th, that was a game against the Nationals. He went 4 for 4, and that raised his season average to 290. And since that point, I'm just scrolling down the game logs here. It has not gone below 290. That's
amazing.
It is 300 as we sit here today on June 23rd, and it has been at 290. I'm sorry. The game after went 282. 282 was the low point, April 30th. Since that,
it has not gone below 290.
It has not gone below because he had 3 for 4 the following day to go.
So why is the perception of Trey Turner still that he is, why do we fixate, or why does a lot of people, I think fans or onlookers, fixate on the shortcomings still? Because I agree with you. I mean, this guy is probably going to make the All-Star team. He has made the adjustments that they asked him to make, right? The defensive adjustments, the adjustments of the play. He's not chasing as much. He's using the whole field. He's stealing more bases. Like, he's doing the things that they asked him to do,
and successfully.
And he's done them on successfully and on a consistent basis now for half of a season.
Mm-hmm.
I know, like, it's going to take more than that, and like he'll have to win them a series in October, I feel like, before people change their minds about Trey Turner, or at least the people who are out on him. I think this guy has had a tremendous season so far for the Phillies.
Yeah, it's something of a rhetorical question because I don't know the best answer to that. The short, quippy one is 2 years outweighs a half season.
Yeah,
but it hasn't even been a bad 2 years, right? Like there have
it's
certainly
just
been
been a
pockets.
so-so,
of
and
good.
he's $300
Yeah.
million player, and I totally understand that the expectation should be higher.
Mm-hmm. No, but this season has been great. This season has been excellent, I would say. I know that the defense was a little shakier early in the year, but this is a guy who's doing, like you said, he's doing what the Phillies need him to do, especially while Kyle Schwarber, who was their clear best hitter for the first 2 months, got off to a slow start in June. So he's been their most consistent player, Trey Turner has, through some other ups and downs. Injuries, lower performance. Some guys are getting going lately, and it's been a better show up and down the lineup. But he's been there the whole time. Offensively, better defensively lately. It's hard to ask for anything more than that so far this year.
Do you know how many shortstops in Major League Baseball have a higher Fangraphs WAR than Trey Turner this season?
Even with the defense, it can't be many because I don't think there are many hitting like him. It's like Jeremy Pena maybe, and where is he? Where is Turner fit?
He's third. Pena is 1, and Bobby Witt Jr. is 2.
Bobby Witt, yeah, okay, yeah. That's Pena's having a nice year, and Witt obviously is
Pena's
Bobby Witt.
Pena is a legit star.
Well, that's nice to see because maybe the defensive concerns were. Would we say they're exaggerated because it seemed like
no,
many
not
things
exaggerated.
were compacted?
No, there were things, and but I think he's made adjustments, and he's playing a better shortstop, and I think he deserves credit for that. And it's not perfect. It's not. No, it is not. But it is better, and I think better is all anyone was asking for. And if you're a reasonable person watching this team, you were frustrated by this guy because both in the field and at the plate, he was hard-headed about things, and now I see a guy who has made adjustments, and over halfway through a season we can say that it seems like this is not a fluke. Like this is not just they're adjustments that appear to have stuck for now.
That also gives me heart and hope for the next couple of years of this deal too, right? Because there was some creeping concern, not really for me, I wasn't quite there yet, but I understand those.
He's playing shortstop in 2026.
Oh yeah, remember that? Like that was a conversation, a creepingly real conversation that we were all thinking about. Oh, where can you stick Turner? You got to make room for Aiden Miller next year. Turner's defense, it's not acceptable at shortstop. We're not having that conversation now, and we're not going to be having that conversation, I don't think, for the rest of the summer, which is interesting. It's a nice little pivot from where we were.
Yeah, I mean, and right now there's only. Like in the National League, to me, shortstop-wise, it's Turner, Lindor, and everybody else. And there are some good shortstops in the National League. De La Cruz, Abrams, Perdomo, Mookie Betts, obviously. But to me, right now, this season, halfway through the season, Turner and Lindor are in a class of their own, I think.
Yeah. So it's nice to see so much going right at once, because it feels like it's so much more dramatic and pronounced when the skids hit, right? And this team was.
Can I talk about one thing that I think is not going well?
What is not going well?
The bullpen.
Yeah.
The bullpen is.
It's still not deep enough.
We know it's a problem, but and we know that they're going to make changes, but I think they're really going to be tested here in the next 5 weeks. And part of it is just that there's such a glaring lack of swing and miss stuff in this bullpen, and it is starting to catch up to them. It already has, but I feel like it's starting to really catch up to them. Their strikeout rate for relievers right now, Paul, ranks 16th in baseball.
Right smack in the middle.
I mean,
that's not the bullpen we've been used to seeing the last couple of years at all.
And it's not the bullpen of a championship caliber team. Like, you have to be able to strike guys out as a bullpen. And for comparison's sake, Houston has by far the best strikeout rate for bullpen in baseball, and it's 28.5%. Phillies are 22% right now. They're with the likes of Milwaukee and Anaheim and Texas in terms of strikeout rate from bullpens. So it shows up in different ways, but because they don't have the best defense, and we've talked about this, the best, you got to be able to strike guys out, and especially if you're a reliever. Sure, and starting pitchers shouldn't be chasing strikeouts all the time, but if you're a reliever, if you're building a bullpen, you're 100% chasing strikeouts. Like, that is the name of the game. And so it makes the task ahead of Dave Dombrowski quite clear here to me in the next 5 weeks. They have to acquire swing and miss stuff. And whether it's one guy or two guys or whatever, like maybe it's one guy and it's just one really, really good guy at getting swing and miss. They so desperately need more swing and miss from this bullpen. Desperately.
It's hard to argue with that assessment. So much of
I'm not saying anything, but I just think in the next 5 weeks it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be really hard. This bullpen's gonna be really tested, I think.
Yeah. Well, part of the reason why I personally felt as comfortable as I did so much of the time the last couple of years with this team in late leads is because, much like we say, papering over defensive liabilities with dingers works. Papering over defensive liabilities with lots of strikeouts also helps late in games. So you don't, expose your fielders, some of your weaker fielders, to the chance of getting more balls in play like that, right? Like, broadly speaking, that's the whole concept behind swing and miss. That's why it's good. And if you don't have as much of that, right now, the only guys getting more than 10 strikeouts per 9 who are on the active roster are Jordan Romano and Matt Strahm. And Matt Strahm certainly lately has not looked like he could miss bats at that level. And Jordan Romano, you unfortunately don't know what you're going to get on a nightly basis, whether you're going to get the absolutely dominant swing and miss stuff or things are going to unravel. It's just kind of been that way for his season, unfortunately.
Right. I mean, like, Kerkering's been really good, but he hasn't had the kind of swing and miss stuff that we've come to expect. And so now, like, you've built this bullpen and, like, they have like 4 versions of the same guy back there. It's the Walker, Ross, Lazar, I guess, you put Alan Ronhell in that group now. I don't know how long he's going to be around, but he's in their bullpen now. But these are these righties who, like, mid to low mid 90s, but no swing and miss stuff, like, at all. I mean, I don't know. Joe Ross is just super frustrating and is not a leverage reliever. What do you think about Taijuan Walker so far? Tie leverage. What do you think of the tie leverage situations?
I don't know how I missed that, but that's tremendous. It's not going the way I hoped.
It's not going well.
I don't think that's an answer. I mean, it's a near-term patch for what's happening right now, but it cannot be the thing that.
Yeah, and we've talked exactly, and we've talked about, like, what they're doing now is not what they will be doing in August and what they will be doing hypothetically in October. But that said, we're still 5 weeks out from the deadline, and I think these next 5 weeks could be really tough on this bullpen.
So then,
I mean, yeah, given the schedule, given the situation, they're going to lose some games in the next 5 weeks because of this bullpen.
But is there any? My hope then lies with the rotation continuing to ask more of them.
Yeah,
I know,
and you got to start hitting some dingers, right? I mean, that's like, it's hitting season. I mean, like, it's 100 degrees outside. How do we start this podcast? But, yeah, I mean, they the next 5 weeks, they really need the bats and the rotation to just carry this team. I mean, because I think there's going to be some real sweaty moments late in these games.
Oh, sweaty. There we go. All right. So that's how things stand right now, right? The Phillies are 16 games above 500 in first place in the NL East, half game back of the best record in the league. But they face a tough pitching test on the road in Houston. Games in Atlanta are always interesting. And this is just a tough point of the schedule until the All-Star break. So we'll see how things go. And then we'll start really talking about trade season. I still don't think, and Matt, I'm sure you haven't received anything to the contrary either. It doesn't seem like there's going to be any sort of significant move apart from roster churn.
Not until after the deadline. Yeah. I mean, not until after the break. I'm sorry.
After the break.
Excuse me. I mean, it's just because and it's not because of lack of desire to do something on the Phillies' bat, but, like, there are so many teams that don't know what they're going to do. Yeah. I mean, like, I think there's a lot of teams that aren't going to know what they want to do until after the All-Star break.
I think you and I are both keeping a close eye on Minnesota.
100%.
Who at the moment are 2.5 back of a playoff spot.
100%.
They have relievers who could get the job done. And I think that's something to watch out for. There are some names I think folks around here would be very happy with picking up, but we'll we'll save that for a little bit closer to the deadline. All right, Matt, I think that's about all the ground we have to cover today. I know you're heading down to Houston.
I need to get my car inspected and serviced. It's going to be a wild off day today.
Yeah, those are some Monday tasks if I've ever heard it. I got a guy coming to check out my yard's capacity for a French drain. We're doing all sorts of cool stuff.
Oh, hell yeah.
We're being dads to the max. But that's where things stand. We can talk about being dads while the team is playing well. And it's just it just feels nice to come into an off day taking a series from the Mets. It doesn't completely wipe out the taste of getting swept earlier in the year, but narrows the gap for the season series, puts the Phillies, in sole possession for the moment. It just feels good.
I like we need to hold ourselves accountable. Like I want to track.
Okay.
We need to remember whether like there's ever more than a 5-game lead between now and August 25th.
Yeah, that's a good point. I will write myself a Post-it note. I'll pin it in our Discord, which is a nice way to get a plug in there for me. If you are still on the outside, maybe haven't heard about this, we have a Patreon. It comes with Discord server access where we're building up a nice little community to talk ball. Patreon.com/Phillies Therapy. It's $5 a month, or buy 10 months, get 2 free if you sign up annually. It's the minimum we can charge just because I want to try and get some more fun stuff going on here. We're cooking up some cool ideas. Going to get back into streaming some stuff for fun. We're just having a good time, and it's a good community, and we'd love for you to be a part. So I'll pin a message over in there, and that's how we'll keep ourselves accountable. No more than a 5-game gap is my guess between now and the end of the year in either direction. All right, Matt, as we trudge toward the finish line here, what else are you looking forward to or going to be paying close attention to during this stretch against the Astros and the Braves on the road?
I think specifically against Houston, like how the lefty pitchers do against a very righty-heavy lineup, a lineup that crushes lefties. Very interested to see how that series goes. The Astros are playing great ball right now. Arguably, the Phillies and Astros are two of the hotter, if not the hottest teams in baseball. And so I'm really excited for those games. And then the Braves series, Abel is going to get another crack at a decent lineup. And, can the Phillies kick the Braves while they're down?
Yeah, well, yeah, this is a good chance to do that. For me, I'm gonna be interested to see what some of the lefty bullpen offerings for the Astros look like against some of these hitters. It's gonna be late inning matchup city, I think, potentially. Obviously, Josh Hader is the headliner there, but former Marlin Steven Okert is having a really nice year. Brian King, who's a little bit of a latecomer, is having a nice year. Bennett Souza, who is a name, I believe, from the White Sox. Yeah, he came up with the White Sox at the start of his career, has also really blossomed after a year out of the major leagues. Last year, they have a lot of big lefties.
They've had a ton of rotation injuries. Like their rotation right now is Valdez, Colton Gordon, Hunter Brown, Brandon Walter, and Ryan Gusto. But they have major injuries. Blanco and Garcia had Tommy John. Javier had Tommy John too, right? Yeah. They had 3 Tommy Johns this year. Yeah. They keep winning. They're the friggin' Astros.
Yeah. Yes, they are. And we'll see the friggin' Astros starting tomorrow. Yay. Tuesday, June 24th. So thanks everybody for listening. This has been Phillies Therapy, part of the Believe Podcast Network. For Matt, I am Paul. Stay cool out there, and we'll see you next week.
Did you know 39% of teen drivers admit to texting while driving? Even scarier, those who text are more likely to speed and run red lights. Shockingly, 94% know it's dangerous but do it anyway. As a parent, you can't always be in the car, but you can stay connected to their safety with Greenlight Infinity's driving reports. Monitor their driving habits, see if they're using their phone, speeding, and more. These reports provide real data for meaningful conversations about safety. Plus, with weekly updates, you can track their progress over time. Help keep your teens safe. Sign up for Greenlight Infinity at greenlight.com/podcast.